Okay.
Okay. So hello, everybody. My name is Nuša Sušnik. I'm a business development manager at DIH, representing companies Hokoma and Motek. And today I will give you a brief presentation about our solutions that we offer. And I'm very pleased that I can be part of this summer school this week today at the clinic in Saol here in Ireland. So thank you very much for the invitation. I would like to start by showing you a brief video so you can get already an idea, and then we'll continue with the presentation.
Over the last 8 years, we have gradually brought robotic technology into the therapeutic environment. And it was really with the intent of increasing both our ability to deliver higher intensity and more repeatable types of therapy.
I find that the robotic gait systems really help us create freedom with our hands. It allows the patients to have continuous repetitive motion, which helps build neuroplasticity in the brain. It gets them weight bearing, it decreases tone, it increases circulation, promotes healing.
Sometimes you are stuck with the patient. The patient is also not really motivated anymore because he's always doing the same. And what I experience here in Rehab is that you can go out of that level where they are stuck. It's really nice to see that the patients are also happy, like finally I'm getting forward.
An amazing feeling, because it's amazing walking again.
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, this is the best part of the job, right? If you make something that actually goes out and people find it useful, that's amazing. I so much appreciate that.
I'm a golfer that happens to have a disability, but I will never let that disability define me.
Okay. As you can see, we can bring many smiles to patients' faces, which makes us proud and happy as well. So basically, just to give you a little bit of overview, what's happening in the world, as you know yourself, the world population is changing. So we can see a lot of increase. So basically, we predict like 32% increase by year 2050. At the same time, we have aging population, which is an issue, and there's many more stroke survivors as we speak. So the problem is 1 in 6 people we predict will have a stroke in their lifetime. And if we talk about the concept and the principles of neuroplasticity in physical rehabilitation, what is extremely important is that we start with the treatment early, okay, as soon as possible after the incident. And then the functional training is effective. So if you want to relearn any task, you have to practice that task. Okay, if you want to learn to walk again, you have to practice walking. Intensive training with high repetitions, extremely important. And then correct efferent feedback stimulates reorganization of the central nervous system. What we want is to stretch above comfort limit, so training beyond the present capability. We always want to push the patient to do more and beyond their capabilities. And of course, extremely important is active engagement of the patient and as well the motivation. As you know yourselves, the motivation is highly important. So a severe stroke patient improves their chance of walking again by 48% if physical therapy includes also robotic training. Okay, so I think this is quite significant. So here on these short videos, you see some of the challenges today with manual therapy. A lot of challenges, basically, there is lack of intensity, a lot of hard work done by physical therapists, And so many issues associated with that. What are the challenges in rehabilitation? So basically we're talking about imbalance between therapy demand and the resources. So therapy demand is huge. There's higher health costs. There's more stroke survivors, as we already mentioned. So a lot of people actually get very good, handling initially, immediately after the incident. But then what do we do with the patients afterward? They get discharged from the hospitals very fast, and then they lack rehabilitation or even access to rehabilitation. And demographic change, as I already mentioned. So on the other hand, therapy resources, limited therapy time, not enough therapists, and they really need to put a lot of high effort into the therapy itself to get some results. So this is an overview of diseases and disabilities that we treat. So we help with people with balance and gait disabilities, with loss of restricted function in their lower extremities, and with loss or restricted function in their upper extremities. What I will do is I will take you through the continuum of the rehabilitation solutions that we offer in both of these spheres. So this is our vision and our mission. And basically on this slide, you can see how a typical rehabilitation gym is looking these days. There's a lot of private as well as public clinics or hospitals, and they have like a rehabilitation gym, we call it, and there's a lot of robotic devices there. It's nowadays a lot in an open space like this, what you see here, so that people can interact with each other, but also the therapists, they can move from one station, let's say, to another, and treat many patients also, during the continuum of rehabilitation. What we're extremely proud of is also our network. So we're working with the most famous leading institutions in rehabilitation globally, both as reference centers and or innovation partners. So we really have a big network, which is also very important because people that are working with robotics, sometimes they get stuck or they need to talk to other colleagues how they're doing. So, we can connect people here and it's very appreciated and important during the whole process. So our vision coming from differentiated products to integrated solutions. We're also in research, let's say, area. So we're working a lot also with universities, university hospitals. This is mostly MOTEC devices from a Dutch company. But then in Hokuma, we cover the whole continuum. So basically from hospital to clinic and then to home environment. So basically we're looking to that the patient gets treatment, early rehabilitation already in the hospital, in the acute care. And then when they're discharged from hospital, ideally they should continue in the clinic and then also at home doing the rehabilitation themselves, by themselves. And what we have invested in the recent years is in the software Coconut, which is basically a software that connects the devices, but also the spectrum, like from the whole rehabilitation from hospital to home. And that makes lives of the therapists much easier because they can follow the treatment of the patient from the very beginning, basically until they're at home themselves. And the idea is that also a virtual assisted therapy continues while the patients are at home and they can get consultancy from the therapists when they're doing the rehabilitation in home environment. So just how that looks is just about the software again. So again, from inpatient to outpatient to home. And if we look at the picture here, it's like a typical gym environment here. Obviously, there are only our devices, but you can connect also other devices, and then you have one point of control where you follow the treatment of the patient from the very beginning to the home environment. So that is the idea. The software has been launched in quite some hospitals as a test product, and we continue to work on that and develop it further. Now I would like to touch on our solutions. So if we first talk about gait and balance continuum of care, these are our devices. Some of these devices you can see here. So basically first we talk about gait and balance continuum of care. And we go from Erigo to Simil. So basically Erigo is a device for mobilization and verticalization, very early stage of rehabilitation. They use these devices very often in IC units, intensive care units, but they also use it in some rehabilitation centers even before they put patients in the Locomat. Then we have the Locomat, which provides repetitive gait training. And then there are several devices that come after the Locomat training, let's say. Andago is for overground gait and balance training. Ryzen is a device coming from Motec. It's with a body weight support, and Simil used for gait adaptability training with a treadmill. So there's a whole continuum of care for gait and balance, and then depending on the needs of the clinic, the needs of the hospital, obviously the budget, the funds available, the space, they decide for the appropriate solution for their needs. Just to touch every single one a little bit deeper, so you see how it looks, and then actually the spectrum when it's used. So basically, again, the Erigo, very early rehabilitation, which, as I said earlier, is extremely important that we start with rehabilitation as soon as possible, and it's used in ICUs and obviously in inpatient facilities. The Locomat, used for inpatient, but also in outpatient clinics. This is the treadmill with body weight support system and lower extremity exoskeleton robotic support to move legs. It's there as you see it. It is both for adults and for children. You can use either only for adults or for children, or a combination, which is then a Locomat combi. So you just change the orthosis and you can have both type of patients. Andago, also for inpatient, but mostly also for outpatient facilities. So it offers safe and free overground gait training. It's really a very versatile device. Also, you can see it here. And it also depends on the creativity of the physiotherapist. You can do many activities and exercises with this device. So it depends a lot on the therapist also what you can do with it. So it's not just about that the robot does everything, but you know, the therapist can help and contribute a lot. Ryzen is the next generation 3D body support system. It's also for inpatient and outpatient. It requires quite some space for it. So it's very important that we, whenever we're thinking about this system, that we get ready and prepare very much in advance. Yeah, so it's important planning basically, but it's really offers unrestricted natural training conditions. And then Simil, also from Motec, which is basically a treadmill with body weight support, also for inpatient and outpatient. It's very effective, and it's for gait adaptability, basically. So it also, you can use it for patients after they come out of Locomat, and then you can train further gait adaptability on the Simil. Then if we move further to arm and hand continuum of care, here we have 3 devices. One is Armeo Power, Armeo Spring, and Armeo Sensor. These are 3 different type of devices, basically all for upper extremities. You don't have any here in this clinic. Otherwise, Armeo Power is a totally robotic device, and it's for very severe patients, so who basically do not have any active movement of the arm. Then the next one in continuum is basically Armeo Spring, which is with exoskeleton and weight support, This basically covers the biggest range of patients, and mostly clinics and hospitals decide for Armeo Spring. And then Armeo Sensor self-directed training for increasing strength and endurance, this device actually could also be used at home environment. So, just so you have an idea about the device there. So basically, this one normally you would put in hospital environment, also in some outpatient clinics, but mostly hospital environment, because it's really for very severe patients. And the EMEA spring is basically exoskeleton. What is nice here is basically all the three devices, they have the same games or exercises, if you wish. So it's very easy to, if you have one, then you can easily get to know the other one. And then a lot of hospitals and clinics, they either have, let's say, EMEA power and EMEA spring, and then they do combinations on different patients, or what is very often used is many, or let's say 2 or 3 EMEA springs in one room, and you can save a lot of time on patients. So once you set up a patient in the EMEA spring, you can set up the program and they can do exercises for 30 minutes and you just control and supervise, and you can treat many, many more patients in this way. Also, they use it in some hospitals, during the time when normally the patients would not be doing therapies. So Saturdays, Sundays, or during afternoons when there's really a lot of idle time in the hospitals. So this is also one of the benefits of these devices, that they're very easy to use. And once you get to know them, you can use them also in, let's say, overtime, or not in the time that is normally dedicated to therapies. And EMEA sensor, as I already mentioned, can be also used at home, because it's very important that you continue with rehabilitation once you're also getting out of the clinical environment. I can say that, really happily and proudly that these solutions are best investigated devices on the market, evidenced by a number of publications. There's been over 800 studies on file, and a lot also currently going on. And I would really invite you to visit our website, which is hokuma.com. There you have a knowledge platform, and on this knowledge platform, you can see there I circled it. You can find a lot of publications, a lot of research papers. So you can, you can just log in, you can download a lot of papers, and then you go through them. You can also find a lot of case studies, a lot of examples from different clinics, different clinical environments. So you can learn a lot from this knowledge platform, and I would really encourage you to use that. It's just an example of research. The one research is just published there. So there's a lot of extremely useful material published there. Okay, this is just, it's just one latest that was published, the Cochrane update, which confirms the efficacy of robotic assisted gait training in stroke survivors. So there's a lot of details published there, and you have access to this. And then if we come to the end here, by using the robotics, you see really that the therapy demand and the therapy resources, they get a little bit more into balance. So, you can really benefit by using robotics together with the conventional therapy, I would say. We never encourage only using robotics. We discussed about this. And also experience shows that, the most effectiveness for the patients come out of using a combination of robotic devices, which give you a lot of repetition, a lot of intensity, which you cannot achieve by only conventional therapy, but the best results come really out of using a combination. And for the end, I just want to show you another video.
All right, Curtis. I'm going to loosen leg straps. They're a little tight on the left.
I've been coming here to NeuroWorks since April of 2011.
All right, let's do this.
I walked on the Locomat
Get over to that right side for me. Kick that left leg.
And it's been a big improving step forward, so to speak, in my progress in learning how to walk.
There you go. Good job. Good job, Curtis.
I actually rolled in the door with my wheelchair. Now I walk in the door.
Beautiful. Now step left.
My goal is to be confident enough to donate my wheelchair one day to someone who needs it. To be at a point where I don't need it anymore. That would be exciting.
With that, I would like to conclude. Thank you very much. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask.
I have a question. But what's based on your experience, and you've been doing this for a long time, what is the biggest roadblock for getting people access to that equipment? What's the biggest challenge to make it available to people?
From perspective of the patient, or?
Yeah, I mean, it helps people so much, and that's kind of that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's what we have seen, but they don't have lots of people still don't have access to it. So to make that change, to bring up your sales figures,
Yeah.
and in order to give people access who need access to those devices, what needs to happen?
I think patients are quite aware of what is available. So patients are looking for these devices. They know, whenever somebody has an accident, whatever, so they are looking for the best of the best, just to get better. So I think a lot of patients are aware. Also today, patients are different than, or families, of the patients are different than it used to be in the past. So they have good knowledge. They educate themselves very well. I think we need to do a job of, educating people that robotics are there, what they can do. One of the issues probably is, in the education, robotics is not there. When in the medical universities, when you're getting education for a physical therapist, you don't educate yourself on that. So I think one of the things is probably also to bring the programs there, just to educate people. Otherwise, once, the word is there and the people get to know what robotics does, there's no hurdles, because we have the models how this works, and I would say that in the last years we made a lot of progress in a lot of countries, also in Central Europe, in Eastern Europe. I mean, there's people are more and more aware. They want the latest technology. They educate themselves. As I said, we have a lot of case examples, so we do have something to show. So I think it's important that we show cases from other countries. We exchange ideas, and that we just, get the word out, and then people would be willing to invest. And there's a lot of examples, where robotics is not reimbursed, okay? And so if you go to public facilities, you do not get this, okay, mostly. But then, a lot of people, a lot of doctors, businessmen, investors, they found out about this investment opportunity. And they did go into these investments, and it pays off. And it pays off for everybody, for patients, they get results. For investors, everybody is satisfied at the end of the day. So it's just about learning about the models in different countries. And we do have a lot of success stories from many, many countries in Europe and across the world.
So Caroline said earlier on that the biggest roadblock was not finance; it was kind of more kind of adaptation and getting the infrastructure in.
For us,
yeah.
No, I'd say finance is a bigger barrier when you're looking at robotics.
That was my question. So yeah. Is money a big factor, or is it more awareness?
Money is a mental factor, I would say, because robotics is not cheap. Okay, so but it depends on how you run a discussion. If you just go, okay, but this costs like thousands of euros, we can't afford that. Yes, but when you go into detail, And when you discuss about the models, you know, and what it brings you back, then it's another story. Then it's not any more expensive. So regarding the space, yes, sometimes it's a hurdle, you know. So, but then again, it depends. If you start the project from the very beginning, it's very important that you get involved in this in the very beginning. So you understand, you know, what height you need, what length you need for different sort of devices, and also the space for Andago, for example. But you know, so if you do it from the very beginning, we get involved a lot. We get involved into planning also. So we have a software now, it's called Rumel, and we can draw the space, you know, exactly as it will look with all these devices in, and we can put also some other devices, because normally a robotic rehabilitation center, they also have some other devices, not just ours, but we can draw all this in the very initial stage, and it's very, very important, you know, so the planning. But, you know, a lot of, I don't know, hospitals or clinics, they also start small, and they put devices in small rooms, but then they see, you know, how they could expand, and they, you know, they start planning for expansion, and they put space for bigger, let's say, spaces. So, yeah, that is important.
That's interesting, because very often what we hear often is that the finance is the biggest barrier. You know? And that's not, doesn't seem to be true.
No, it definitely is, but it depends on the model. Like you were talking about investors coming in, that's a hugely different model than asking an NHS trust, which is not going to get a financial return on investment. Yes, there is a client return on investment, only if they can keep the staff trained and you have dedicated people to use it, that they maintain it, because these all have service budgets that require meeting. So you do have a massive financial issue within the public health service, which we don't see to the same extent in private clinics. And that's not, I am a big fan. I work with a lot of robotics, but I do understand the challenge for our health service in adopting them compared to some private clinics, which can make it more accessible. But then you run a danger in those private clinics is all of their resource goes into running the robots all the time, because they need to run the robot to make the money to keep the center open. So what you're talking about, having that good blend between using robotics and using the clinical know-how, that is essential. And I think we have to find the balance in our public health system as well.
Yeah, but the finance is the issue for the public health. So these devices are great, but all of them, for example, back in my country, in Croatia, in few cities, Serbia, Bosnia, I'm not sure, they are all settled in the private centers. So no one public hospital is able to afford itself.
I would not agree. So happy to hear you're coming from Croatia. Croatia is very specific. Dr. Glavic, they have several private centers. However, you would be surprised right now. We sold the Lokomat to Serbia. It's also private, but at the same time, we're discussing of bringing it to one public hospital there. So it's with the tendering process and everything.
Maybe last few months, or I heard that something's changing.
And also in Bulgaria. But I would say also, for example, a good example is Poland. In Poland, you know, they have our partners there. They have very good knowledge of how to source from European funds. And they finance a lot from European funds, and that goes both for private as well as public. So it's a combination. So it's not only
thank you for your presentation. I work a lot with Lokomat and other robotic systems. I think it's very important to say also to have a good concept to increase all things, this functional therapy, stretching and so on, you say. But the money to investment is a big problem for clinics and also outside ambulation. So we must think, also in Germany, we think about who will pay this. The government not pay outside patient for Lokomat, and it's a big problem because, you know, you have to make studies and show that it works well. Robot therapy has also studied, but not show clearly that it is a real effect in this. but the government say no, but. So it's a big problem that we have good therapy in combination with other evidence high therapy, but the government is not allowed to pay this patient.
Yeah.
And this is a big problem, I think. So the robotic comes more and more in Europe or in other countries. And the beginning story was the therapist was very afraid that robotic take over the work from therapists. But now much therapists understand it's not so true, because if you work very well with the machines, it works good, and also combination with other things. But the management of money, it still stays a problem in all countries.
I agree,
Yes.
and I hope this will change. Yeah.
So you, all companies, I think, you, Hukuma, Exobinex, this, I think the best way is all companies come together and fighting for this.
Mm-hmm.
But all companies alone and looking and make a little bit, but it's not helpful. We do not get the money in this case.
May I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm Philip. I'm working also in the DIH.
Yes.
I'll be responsible for Ireland, UK, Portugal, and Spain. I'd like to say something. Very often, also the associations, which are in fact important stakeholders, important sources of lobbying, making pressure to the central governments, because every person who has one impairment, person home, is a vote in elections. And I think all these institutions, all associations, along with, of course, with the industry, which are developing equipment to help people, they should have strong impact, make strong and forced lobbying to help to solve the problems which exist. And do not be less, to be more and more and more. When Nuša was presenting that in any 6 persons, one is a potential candidate to stay with a huge impairment, it can happen to any person. Maybe it happen to any person of decision in any government.
Yes.
So this is, I think, can be the key to create pressure, tension, because to take a decision and to change the panorama and the things.
Yes.
This is the way. This is the way. And make a lot of noise.
Yes. Hopefully.
This
but
is
you
only
see,
the solution.
some clinic manager say, yes, we want to have it. It's a good seeing that we have this in the clinic, we are modern and so on, and they put robotic, and reduce the therapist and make not a concept only robotic, 2-3 therapists, 1 hour, machines go away and then finish. That's not a good way. So we must find we have a concept. We know all in the room.
Yes. Nuša was mentioning it's the machines, they only help to make the high intensity repetition and also to motivate.
Yes.
People, we have people and people therapists which they work every day, hours and hours with their patients.
Yes.
They are important in this role, putting all of the attention. It's not only to leave the patient working with the robot to do everything, but the attention, motivation, checking what assessment which is our machines, our equipment can offer, that you can see how is developing the patient. And of course, if you can have one person managing one patient, 1-to-1, or maybe in one period another one, you are giving with less effort, physical effort. I don't know how I would deal with one deep impairment person, but for a physiotherapist, I believe physically and emotionally is exhausting.
Yes.
To work to make the repetitions. Machines help. This is the reason why training and the training and development is successful when you can repeat millions of times. Okay, but the role of the therapist is extremely important. Machines by itself, they don't do nothing.
Yes.
It is like to have, sometimes I'm joking a bit, like to have one 500 power horses car, very powerful, in the hand of someone cannot use it. So you must have the real therapist with all knowledge to help to conduce the equipment. And to help the patient.
And thanks for this. No, thanks for this, because I'm also coming back to your question. What is, the hurdle? It's also the medical team. It's extremely important.
It's a philosophy.
Extremely important. You can have the space, you can have the money, you can have all the robotics, but if you don't have a really motivated medical team, physiotherapists, whoever is working with machines, it's going to be a failure. So that's extremely important. Because often you see investors, they come and they say, okay, I have the money, I want to buy this robotics, that robotics, and they don't have the concept, they don't have the medical team. No, but normally some people, that would be ideal. They have some medical doctor or a physiotherapist who is pushing for that, and then it's easier because they know what it is all about. But if you only have the money and the space for the devices, it's not going to work out. So you need very, very good professional medical team with it. And we've seen this many times.
Let us fighting for that the government will pay for this.
That will take some time, but maybe I think there was a case in Germany where there was a little girl, I can find out details about this, when she could not walk, and the medical system has written her off, and they said she's never going to walk again. And then they put her into Locomat. And they proved basically, because there's also evidence, so you can show exactly what was done and what was on day 1 and what was on day whatever, let's say 60 or whatever. And she started walking again. And I think that they persuaded some insurance company that they paid backwards then, the money, because they saw the result.
So it's in Germany, some fighting with.
Yes, there is.
It's a big fight.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your talk. So interesting, and we're really looking forward to trying the practical side of it. We might actually get ready.
Thank you.
Thank you. And, all this conversation will be continued. I think this is just the beginning. Thank you to Caroline as well for you're going to continue.